every single day of the year. And this is just from an idea to become this monstrous social impact organization in India. Then my good friend Swapnil Chaturvedi, who's known in his hometown as the Poop Guy, for the work that he does in the slums of his city of Pune. Somewhere along the way, I got together with some friends and we found a little organization of our own called We Can't Wait, with a very bold goal of providing sustainable sanitation for everyone on the planet. You got to have BHAGs, don't you? Big, hairy, audacious goals. So that was ours. An Indian community magazine here in Melbourne found out what we were trying to achieve, and they decided to give me a name to stand alongside my friends Mr. Toilet and the Poop Guy, which I think most of you now heard this name already, the Toilet Warrior. It's a name I'm really proud of, and anytime we visit schools in India, the kids are told the Toilet Warrior is coming to visit, and it's a lot of fun. They all think it's very funny. They come running and screaming across the grounds of the school, yelling out Toilet Warrior, Toilet Warrior, and it's something I'm very proud of. It speaks volumes about what we're trying to achieve, and you'll notice the little finger. In India, that means I need to go to the toilet, and you will have seen people in the other photos with their fingers up there like that. 2017, I was inducted to the World Toilet Organization Hall of Fame. I don't really know what it means, but it makes people smile. And Leslie, I see you smiling there, so thank you for confirming that. One of the reasons I've been showing you these images up to here is that all the people you've seen so far don't mind if you laugh at them, if it helps you remember the underlying message, because behind the humour, there's a lot of stuff that's not so funny. I'd like to start with a story about one school in particular. Swapnil Chaturvedi, the Poop Guy, took me to this school. It's in a village of about 300 people, and had 25 students, all primary age. You can see about half of them on the ramp there. And there's one teacher, a young woman of about 25 years of age. The school didn't have a toilet. So through Swapnil, who was my translator on the day, I asked her how she managed. And she told us that she lived in another village about 2 hours away by bus. So she'd travel to work on the bus, she'd work all day, and she'd travel home 2 hours on the bus. And when she got home, the first thing she'd do would be to have a big drink of water. So what she was saying with that is that she'd go the entire day without drinking water, even in the heat of summer, because she was afraid she might need to go to the toilet otherwise. I then asked how she managed when she had her period, and she said, well, the kids don't go to school on those days. So think about the implications of that. The children's education was being curtailed every time this young woman had her period. The mothers of these children had to stay home from work to look after the children, thereby reducing family incomes every time the teacher had her period. And the whole community knew every time the teacher had her period, her dignity was being smashed, and the entire community was paying the price. So I said to Swapnil, I can't leave this place without doing something about it. And he agreed. And we decided together that such a small school, all primary age kids, we could try one toilet, one wash basin, which they would share with the teacher, and see how it goes. So we worked out we could do this for around 1,000 Australian dollars. So I gave him half the money from my pocket, and he funded the other half. About 3 months later, Swapnil called me up in Melbourne and said, Mark, I've got a message for you from the teacher. She wants you to know that the first thing she does when she gets to school these days is have a big drink of water. What amazing instant impact. It was pretty exciting. And then she told us that the previous month was the first time since she'd started working at the school that the kids had been able to go to school every day. So in one fell swoop, for a cost of $1,000, the community of 300 have suddenly got their family incomes back up because mums can now work full time. Kids' incomes back on track because they can now go to school every day. And this young woman has her privacy and dignity back. It's a pretty big impact for $1,000. So this kind of led me on to realizing, well, I got to do more of this stuff. I want to run some numbers by you, tell you a little bit about what's going on in the background, or what was going on in the background in the world of sanitation in India. And I apologize for that little joke at the top there. I can't help myself. In 2013, 85% of schools in India had toilets. Today, it's approaching 100%. Looks pretty good at first glance. Dig a little deeper and it's not quite so nice. In 2013, only 55% of them actually had functional toilets. Today, it's a bit over 70% now. Dig deeper again and it starts getting really ugly. So only 25% of schools in 2013 had separate functional toilets for girls. Today, it's around 40%. So it's moving in the right direction, but nowhere near fast enough. So it's not really surprising that a quarter of girls in India were dropping out of school on reaching puberty in 2013. Now, that's not all because of lack of toilets, but it was one of the big factors. Today, it's around 20%, so it's a small improvement. Girls missing school during that period in 2013 was 25%, and that is very, very closely linked to lack of adequate sanitation facilities. Today, it's around 20%. Again, not improving fast enough. And the reasons for that are, there are a couple of major reasons. One of them is this issue. The Indian government's done a lot of really good work on getting people to focus on sanitation and getting toilets into schools and into households and so on. But 75% of schools, which is 1 million schools in India, don't have enough toilets. And that's today. I visited a school in Chennai in late November, early December last year, and it had 2 toilets for 900 children. It's like not having toilets at all, and you can imagine the condition of them. And there's the second issue. If you're doing a sanitation project anywhere in the world, if you don't take maintenance and cleaning seriously and build it into your project, you're better off going and doing something else altogether because you'll fail. And I want to show you a video of the girls' toilets in a school that I visited. First time was about 3.5 years ago. See if it plays. The stuff you see on the ground, the little lumps you see on the ground, it's just what you think it is. They go in there and they go to the toilet on the floor because look at the state of the toilet itself. So I spent a minute in this place the first time I was there, and I was pretty distraught by it, but I decided to stay and film. The smell stayed in my nose for hours. About a year later, I was back again, and I said to the headmaster, I want to film, but this time with commentary. And he said, I'm sorry, sir, you can't go back in. There are too many snakes in there. The little girls were still using it as a toilet. So that was just a bit too much for all of us to bear at the time, and we decided we needed to do something about it. And I'm very happy to say that in January last year, we consigned this abomination to history, although we made sure that it's never going to be knocked down because we want to show people. We actually took Rotary Foundation trustee Julia Phelps to show her this toilet, and she was in tears when she came out. But then we took her to show her the new ones, and she was in tears when she saw them as well, but for a very different reason. We built 3 blocks like that with 33 toilets. I reckon it's the most beautiful toilet block I've ever seen in my life. I went back again in December last year, so about 11 months after we opened them. It still looked like this on the outside. The inside was pristine. They were being cleaned properly. The kids were involved in the cleaning and maintenance as well as the teachers. And the Rotary Club that we worked with there really hadn't had to do much since then except make sure that everyone's okay and happy with it. Yeah, this is really one of our proudest achievements. And I still get quite emotional just looking at that photo. This school was introduced to me by a guy who's become a very close friend, bit of a fuzzy photo, but his name's Firdaus Kapadia. He's from the city of Nasik, which is about 3 to 5 hours by road from Mumbai, depending on the traffic. Right now, it'll probably be much faster for the wrong reasons. So Firdaus was introduced to me as someone who could help me with some problems I was having with the unions in a factory I was running in the DVD industry there. And we sat down for our first business meeting. And you know how it is when you first sit down in a business meeting, a bit of small talk. And I remember saying to him, can you believe there are schools in your country without toilets? And he said, yes, I know about that because my Rotary Club has a relationship with a school which has recently asked us for toilets. And I was pretty excited by that. But also quite confused as what's Rotary? I thought Rotary was an organisation that cooked sausages outside Bunnings in Melbourne, or put signs in the middle of roundabouts in country towns in front of and bigger than the Lions sign. I didn't know what Rotary was, and he said, "Look, Mark, you really need to go and approach a Rotary Club in Melbourne and see if you can be a guest speaker, because they might be able to provide some additional money to We Can't Wait so we can work together. And I went back to Melbourne. I was a member of the Rotary Club, a member of Box Hill Golf Club. I was in there paying my dues at 8:30 one Wednesday morning when a bunch of people came out of a meeting with a Rotary sign on the front. And I sort of turned to the guy who'd come out looking very dapper, Bruce McEwen, who was apparently the club president at the time, and said, do you need a speaker? Told him a little bit about the story, said, yes, we need a speaker. But by the time I finished talking a couple of weeks later, he basically signed me up as a member as well. He was a pretty slick operator, Bruce. I had no chance. So I joined the Rotary Club of Box Hill Central, and We Can't Wait has essentially been absorbed into a new project which the club set up called Operation Toilets. We went back to Firdos's club, the Rotary Club of Nasik Road in India, and my district, 9810, and their district, 3310, got together and we put a district grant together to build 15 toilets in a school of 500 kids, which had no toilets at all at the time. A school called the New English School, and I'll show you some images from that because it's our first project through Rotary, and for me this was miraculous actually. You know, I'd spent a year with We Can't Wait raising a couple of $1,000 thinking, I don't know what to do. How do I do anything with it? And for someone who knew nothing about Rotary, to see this happening within months of joining was pretty exciting. I won't pretend we didn't make mistakes. I think everyone makes mistakes with projects, and in fact I don't know if anyone could ever point to the perfect project, but this project had so much good come out of it as well. It led to the growth that we've seen in our project Operation Toilet since as well, and the friendships that we've developed here. And that's my happy toilet face. You see that? So if you don't have a happy toilet face, please develop one. They're worth having. About 3 days after we finished the project, the headmaster called me up. He said, Mark, we've got a problem. You can imagine the hackles went up on the back of my neck. Okay, what's wrong? What's happened? And he said, the boys are complaining. We built toilets for the boys as well. So I was thinking, why on earth were the boys complaining? He told me they're complaining because the queue for drinking water got longer. So we were seeing real impact in an international development project in 3 days. Now, most people, they do their work, cross your fingers for a couple of years and hope to see something. Now, as I said, the project hasn't been perfect, but boy, to get that kind of dramatic impact so quickly was really exciting. Told us we got to keep on going with it. So we went back to the Rotary Club of Nasik Road and we developed a global grant with them. Instead of 500 kids, this one was to reach 5,000 kids, and it was across 7 schools. Then we started another global grant further north with the Rotary Club of Delhi Ashoka in District 3012, and 11 schools with about 8,000 kids. Then we did a small project in Ethiopia. Kept developing more projects in India. We've been working in a small way with a club in South Australia on a project in Ghana. I was sent to Guatemala as a member of the Rotary Foundation Cadre of Technical Advisors last year to help with a huge project over there. We've done some consulting for a project in Lebanon. We're looking at opportunities in Cambodia, Timor-Leste and the Solomon Islands. This thing is bigger than Ben-Hur. There's no limit to the number of projects that can be done in this space, and the impact is dramatic. So after our first global grant was finished, the Rotary Foundation said they were going to do an audit, which is great. It's really important for Rotarians to know that their money is not being wasted. The audit was done 6 months after the project was finished, the 7 schools, 5,000 children. And they found after 6 months that absentee days among adolescent girls across these schools had dropped 10 to 15% across all the schools, which we're pretty excited about. But then they also showed that enrollment among adolescent girls had increased 10 to as much as 25% in one of the schools. Some girls coming from nearby schools that didn't have toilets, and others actually returning to the education system because their school of choice now had toilets. But the best bit of this is the real impact is what comes later. Because we know that if girls stay in school longer, they marry later, they have fewer children, the kids are less likely to die in the first 5 years of their lives, and their lifetime earning capacity increases 5 to as much as 10% for each additional year spent in school. This is a path away from abject poverty. Obviously, right now we're facing some real tough stuff around this, but we need to believe that there's going to be a big light at the end of this tough tunnel we're in. I want to introduce you to some of the people we've worked with and show you some of the work we've done in the 6 years since I came to Rotary. Stuff I'm pretty proud of, and I think you'll like what you see here. Is the video running reasonably smoothly?
Yep.
That's my son there, by the way. That's past District Governor Brian Martin from District 9810, standing there with the hat on. That's my plumber. Got a grant from Reese Plumbing to help us. And the lady with the yellow sash is my wife. So I've been to India about 40 times before she finally came with me. She was pretty convinced I had another family over there. So I took her over to meet them all, my Rotary family and all these kids that we've been working with, and she's now been back with me 3 times, and all things being equal, we'll go again next year. So a little bit, just a few numbers before I start winding up. In the first year before joining Rotary, We Can't Wait raised a couple of $1,000. I joined Rotary, and now 6 years down the road, we're approaching $1 million Australian. And now that's from clubs, districts, those outside Rotary, and of course the Rotary Foundation. In the first year, our first project reached 500 children. We're now approaching 100,000 within 6 years, and that's directly impacted by the projects. Indirect, it's approaching 500,000, and the indirect is a measurable indirect. This is what's so exciting, is we're seeing other people copying our work. And the best one of all was we finished a global grant in near Delhi in January last year. And the mayor of the local municipal corporation came down to cut the final ribbon. And he said, I've been watching this global grant for 2 years and I like it so much I've decided to copy it, but I'm going to copy it in 700 schools reaching 350,000 kids. Now, isn't that great? If we can get other people to do our work and pay for it, that's so much better. And we can simply be the instigators and the driving force behind it. And he's asking Rotary to consult on the work as he's doing it. And why not? We're free, aren't we? Now, year 8, I might have to shift it to year 9. I think this year, 2020, feels like one we're gonna park 2020. So it might be year 9, but our vision is to reach 1 million kids, and we'll do it. It's going to happen through indirect reach. It's just a matter of when, and for me, the sooner is better. But we know that we've got things holding us up this year. So you're probably gathering from all this that I'm fairly toilet obsessed. So much so that I wrote a book which I published in May last year, and it's sold pretty well. I sold a couple of thousand copies, and I'm giving the profits to the Rotary Foundation and to Wash in Schools focused projects. I've very proudly been able to add 2 more sapphires to my PHF there as a result of this book since May last year, and I can't think of any better place to put it, because this story wouldn't exist without our foundation and without Rotary International in general. So I'm going to finish up with one video which I made today. I'm trying to put a bit of a promo together about Operation Toilets, about why we, and really this is something that's important for all Rotary projects. We need to make sure that we give Rotarians a reason to push through this difficult time. And that reason is going to be what we're going to do afterwards. We can do some stuff now, but we can do so much more afterwards. And part of it's remaining motivated for that. So you're the test case for this. No one's seen it yet, so hopefully it'll work.
guarantee there are a lot of men out there wishing I hadn't shown that video just now, because they don't want their partners knowing that that's how a lot of men in the world wash their hands after using the toilet, even now at the time of the coronavirus. I'm going to hand over to some Indian school children who learned proper hand washing techniques through the work of Operation Toilets, so they can show you how it should be done. This will be a reminder of two things for you. One, for goodness sake, wash your hands properly. And two, that when this is all over, our beneficiaries in the developing world are going to need us more than ever. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
There's a thunderous
You can see it.
Awesome, everybody. And I'm sure that they're all applauding.
I can see it.
We've had 50 on, but I can see I've got Melissa here with me, and I can
you got 50 now, yeah.
Tanya. So I'm saying more than 50, and there might be others with more than one person there, but I'm struggling to see. So, are you happy to take a few questions, Mark?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to.
Lovely. And I can just see my other friend, our neighbouring district governor, Brian Peters, has joined us as well from 9790. So, Brian, I don't know if you saw Tanya Lowry here, and Jesse Harmon's joined us as well. There's quite a few past district governors from our district, so it's good. A few people have started typing questions in already, which is great, into the chat area. And if you can do that, that's great, and I'll get to them. And if you don't know how to use chat, just put your hand up and give us a bit of a wave, and hopefully I'll see you. I'll keep scrolling through the multiple screens. So can you see those, Mark, as well?
Yeah, I'm just having a look through them.
The first one was at 6:20 from Casey, and then there was a follow-up one about 13 minutes later about the Gates Foundation project on toilets.
Yeah, so look, I mean, what Bill Gates is doing to raise the profile of this issue is wonderful. The work we're doing is actually, in reality, it's not about toilets, it's about educating girls. And toilets are one of the barriers to girls being educated. So we've, as much as we'd like to say we're going to look for perfect technical solutions, what we're looking for is solutions that will get girls back to school as quickly as possible and to full-time schooling as quickly as possible. Most of our projects, we've used septic tanks. We've had a couple where we plugged into sewers because the sewers are nearby, but in India, sewers are hit and miss. In Ethiopia, where we've been, forget it. In Ethiopia, even septic is hard to organise. So in the longer term, the solutions that Bill Gates is looking for could be of immense value to Rotary and others doing this kind of work. Once the Gates Foundation work gets to a point where their solutions are easy to replicate and very cost effective, that's the sort of stuff all of us are going to want. But right now, to me, it's what can we do to help girls get back to education quickly?
Great, thanks. There's a lot of comments saying great presentation and fantastic and very inspiring. There's a question from Jesse Harmon. In your book, you talk about the importance of sanitation. Can you please tell the audience why this is so important as a critical element of success?
I guess it's, if you look at the impact of living in a world without sanitation, most countries in the developing world where sanitation is either limited or even some parts of countries like Cambodia where you just can't find it at all, the biggest issue and the thing that stands out first is waterborne disease and child mortality. To me, they're probably the big ones. I've been to a village in Cambodia where almost 10% of the children didn't make it to their 5th birthday because of poor sanitation. They would, in the dry season, people would be going to the toilet in a hole. In the wet season, it would all come up and they'd be walking around up to their waists in it. The other thing, of course, if people are defecating in the open, even one person in a village going out in the fields, the flies can land on on that one person's shit and go on everyone else's food. So the whole village can get sick if one person is not working with proper sanitation. So that's one of them. The other one that's a really big one to me is about security and dignity, particularly security for women, actually. That there are terrible stories of girls and women being raped while looking for somewhere to go to the toilet, because, of course, it's got to be done somewhere private in India and many other parts of the world, not just private, but after dark, so they can't be seen or heard. And if you're going somewhere where you can't be seen or heard and you pull your pants down, you're immediately putting yourself at risk. Apart from the dignity issues, you're immediately putting yourself at a risk that you're not at if you've got a toilet at home. So those are a couple of the reasons. Was there something else you'd like me to add to that, Jessie? Unmute.
Sorry, Mark. Yes, and it was. That is important. But the part that I was particularly interested in your book, you talk a lot about the importance of hygiene.
Yes.
And that you can't have the infrastructure without the hygiene.
Correct.
So can you expand on that a bit?
Yeah. So you really can't separate it. The water, hygiene, sanitation, and as you know, I'm on the board of WASRAG, the water sanitation. Actually, we're about to change our name, Water Sanitation and Hygiene Rotary Action Group, will be our new name. If you give people toilets but don't give them soap, it's not nearly as effective as if you give them the toilets and the soap. And of course, soap's not going to work without water. Now, in environments where water is really problematic, there are other ways of cleaning your hands. We're all facing this stuff right now, the importance of hand washing. So this is something that people in the developing world it's been in their lives for a long time, that if you don't wash your hands, you get sick. This is new for us because we've kind of, first of all, we were all taught by our mums how to wash our hands. And second of all, from the video I showed before, a lot of blokes in particular in the West are pretty lazy about hand washing. And we're now in an environment for the first time since the 1850s or 1870s, where in the West, we have to be as careful as people in the developing world about hand washing. So that's one area of hygiene. The other area of hygiene, of course, is menstrual hygiene. And if you don't have proper menstrual hygiene management for adolescent girls in the school environment, that's one of the big causes of dropout. The same thing in the work environment. If you don't have proper menstrual hygiene management, which means private space as well as access to the kind of products they need, whether it's pads or tampons, whether it's washable pads or disposable, whether it's moon cups, whatever, if they don't have access to appropriate product plus somewhere clean and private to deal with their personal needs when they're menstruating, you're falling over before you start as soon as girls reach that age. So I guess those are the two things for me, that the hand washing hygiene and the menstrual hygiene are the two big ones.
Yeah, thanks, Jessie. Thanks, Mark. Stephen Aquilina, do you want to unmute and ask your question in person?
Hi, everyone, and hi, Mark.
Hi
yeah, I was just wondering, have you done any work with the Days for Girls organisation? There's been a number of Rotary clubs around the world, including my own, who's partnered with them on past projects. I was just wondering, have you had any experience with Days for Girls?
We certainly have. They're an amazing organisation. I know Celeste Mergens, the founder, quite well. I've actually recently started recording a series of podcasts, and I've asked her to come on the show with me, and I'm really hoping she'll say yes soon, because she's now got time to spare as well. We had an interesting experience with Days for Girls, which Jessie may remember, quite an amusing experience, where my club arranged to get 100 kits, Days for Girls kits, to take with us to India. And so first of all, I was surprised how much space they took up. 100 kits was 4 suitcases full. And I usually travel with hand luggage only, so suddenly had a problem there. But anyway, there were four of us going, 4 men going, and so we took 4 suitcases and we got to India, and the Indian customs officer asked us what it was. And he asked us to open the bags, and he looked at it and said, "What's that?" And it was quite an awkward moment. The other 3 guys stood back and said, "Mark, you can deal with this one." And I really at first didn't know where to start. And then I saw he had a female colleague in the background. I said, "Can you ask her to come over? I can explain it to her, because this is ladies' business." And he immediately understood, became very flustered, and just told us to leave. But then we got to the Rotary Club that we were working with, and at their meeting the next evening, I presented the 4 suitcases to them, and I explained what it was, and they were all very excited and saying. And one of the older men in the room jumped up and said, "This is wonderful. We'll give it to all the girls in the school." So I said, "Look, some of the girls will already be using commercially available products or disposable product, and they won't want to use this. So we need to find out who would benefit from it and who wouldn't." And he said, "Wonderful. Let's get all the girls in a room together and ask them who's using disposable product." I noticed some of the ladies laughing here. Yes, that's not an appropriate question. So we kind of said to this guy, we might find a more sensitive way of doing that. So what we ended up doing was getting some of the female members of the club and a couple of the female teachers in the school to get together with small groups of girls and their teachers and mothers, 4 or 5 at a time, just to talk about menstrual hygiene at all, because a lot of these girls had had no education about this at all. This is a tough subject to discuss anywhere, but in India, next level. So I know myself, when I first started talking about periods at girls' schools here in Melbourne, the look of shock on the girls' faces was, first of all, no toilets, and second of all, did that man just say period? And he's not their doctor or their biology teacher, but but Days for Girls, fantastic organisation, and there are others doing similar work, and it's really important.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Stephen. We've got Maria Hicks, who's actually a regional rep for Days for Girls, and Maria's typed in a couple of comments there. Maria, just want to add something quickly to the conversation on that topic?
Yes, thank you. My typing was too fast and not really that crash hot. And we basically at Days for Girls in Cambodia, we reinforce everything that Mark's talking about. We have a project at the moment that I'm working in, for example, in Ratnakiri in Cambodia. And we have 600 students, no toilets, but we have Days for Girls kits. So we can't really do anything because the girls aren't coming to school anyway. And that's one place that I took Celeste to, Mark. And of course, Mark's done the right thing there. When he gave out the kits, he also did the distribution with the education program. I think there's a question there, what about the boys? Yes, we do have a boy program. It's adapted to the boys. It's called Men Who Know, and it's given by the men in the community, and it talks about how to be a leader amongst men for the young men, and it teaches them, I guess, respect for girls, and goes against, like violence and drugs and drinking and stuff like that as well.
I should comment that when I was in Guatemala on the cadre visit, Days for Girls were very active in that project. It was a big project under something called the Wash in Schools Target Challenge, which Jesse might have heard about. It's a $500,000 project with 85% of the money coming from foundations. So it was done in a very it was experimental, and Days for Girls were involved in teaching the menstrual hygiene and sex education in all the schools. And in all the schools, the mothers in particular wanted to know what the kids were going to be taught first. So they did sessions with the mothers first. And what was fascinating is, in almost all cases where we went along, the mothers were saying after the session, we want more of these because we don't know this stuff.
Yes, I'd like to confirm that. At the moment, we're working in Cambodia with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, and we are putting through the Days for Girls curriculum through the Teachers College in Phnom Penh, and we just had recently, well, I was there twice, we had the master teachers who are sophisticated Khmer ladies, and they've got degrees, they've travelled. And when we talked about the number, number of holes in a woman's body, now they've had children. One. So this is like somebody, like I've got, when we had the questions, we had bits of, post-its. So they were forever jumping up and down going, but wait. I said, right, at the end, send us the questions, right? So questions were, we don't believe, so we showed them the diagram of the woman's genital area and they're going, no. So that was one. The second one was, do men have, what happens do men have periods? And do men have menopause? Okay, well, there's change, right? So we've got questions like that, which are so obvious that things that we might take for granted. But as Mark said, the information, we taught the master teachers, and they were so excited. Now they've all gone out and, spread the word
Wonderful.
to the community. Yeah.
Just mindful of the time, there's been a couple of people ask questions about whether we have, if we had any requests for placing toilets in our Indigenous community, communities. So is that something that's been happening?
It's actually a really interesting issue. I don't know if some of you probably know a website called The Conversation. The Conversation had an article last year written by a woman who's a professor at the University of Queensland, and a girl working for WaterAid, and they were looking at this particular issue in Indigenous communities, and the issue specifically being adolescent girls dropping out of school in remote Indigenous communities in Australia. And they found that while not as prevalent as in developing countries, there was a real issue with not all girls having access to menstrual hygiene products, so pads or tampons or Days for Girls style kits. It's very, very hard to identify these communities and which parts of the communities they're in. It's something that I would love to get involved in. I see that as it's an absolute disgrace that this can be happening in our country. And it actually should be our government's responsibility to fix that. But Rotary can advocate for it. It's just unacceptable. This country, even after what we're going through now, this country can afford to look after people who are doing that badly. And I don't think Rotary should be the organisation to fix it. I think we can advocate and we can assist in the process, but this should be fully government funded.
Hello, sorry, it's Cheryl. I've just put the link to that article.
Oh, good.
On the chat.
Well done.
I had to read it twice. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I thought this must be wrong.
It's like everything else.
Yeah. Thanks, Cheryl, and thanks, Mark. We might bring it to a close there. I think there's only one or two other questions that weren't asked, but given the time, the factor, we'll bring it to a close. So I'd just like to thank you, Mark, once again for being our presenter tonight and giving such a wonderful presentation. I think everyone would agree, and from the comments on the chat area, that everyone's very, very impressed with the work you've done over these many, many years, and also for your presentation tonight. Give us a bit of an insight into the great work that you have been doing.
Well, there's a couple of final comments on that. I guess the first thing is I couldn't have done this work without Rotary. I mean, this organisation has made it possible, and the foundation as well. And that's why I keep on adding to my PHF, because I get so much personal return on being allowed to do this wonderful work, being a privilege to be able to do this work. The other thing I'd say is, for anyone here, if you think your clubs or any clubs, Tanya, any clubs in your district looking for a speaker, I'm available twice. Easy. I love telling this story. It's the best story I've ever heard. I love it. So I want to keep telling it. The power of the impact that you can have by doing something so simple is just dramatic. And we all know it's true. If we can make life better for girls and women, and make the whole planet better.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've got Tanya, and you've also got Brian.
And Grant knows how to find me.
I do know. So let me know, Tanya or Brian, if you want Mark to talk like this in your district. This is a wonderful way to get our message out there, the way Rotary connects the world. And thank you, Mark, for everything.
And opening opportunities in my year, of course.
Yes. Certainly look forward to that. Everyone, if you would give a quiet but very visible round of applause on screen.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much.
Lovely.
I really enjoyed this. It was great. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. And thanks everyone who's joined us tonight. As I said, we've had over 50. So it's a good way to get us all together on technology to keep connected through these challenging times. And Mark, I just wanted to finish by thanking you for that hand washing one, especially highlighting the men. We all need to leave the soap on our hands for the 20 seconds plus. Don't put it on, wash it, and then rinse it.
That's right.
You've got to give the product time to work. So everyone remember that.
That's right. Turn the water off and keep on scrubbing. Yeah, that's right.
It. Yeah. And then go for it. So thanks again, everybody. Look forward
to as well.
Seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.